Sup, Shred Sexies. Welcome back. Death to the Fingers. I am absolutely pinned right now. So let's get into this train wreck. How do you develop fluidity on the fretboard? You know, the question sort of originated from, I was watching a bunch of bootlegs on bands like Dire Straits and whatnot. And when they're doing the live stuff, it's way more shreddy. They're diving between the rhythms and like doing these little extra sort of noodly things all over the place. But they're like playing with a huge amount of confidence. They know everywhere on the fretboard with respect to this song, right? And I'm like, it's just they know everywhere on the fretboard with respect to music. So it wouldn't matter what the song was. They just know what to play in that situation, according to what their strengths and weaknesses are, of course, right? So that's another big one right there. You got to maximize those things so that you become the best at what you can do, and people will like you for just what that is. You don't have to be super psycho shreddy. So how do you get that sort of level of tactical awareness? How do you get that fluidity, the speed of mind, essentially, to be able to just move around the fretboard with total confidence and just play that stuff? And I'm like, it's about organizing your thoughts, So there's the whole breaking out of the sort of very regimented practice idea that you're going to practice to a metronome, or even doing the free play. At the end of this little splurb here, I do 2 more little sort of solo sections where I do free play versions of, kind of working on these ideas of combining fluidity of ideas together, where it's the pentatonic scale and 3 notes per string. And of course, I'm going to throw a few sweeps in there and alternate picking and hammer-ons and pull-offs and sequences and the whole 9 yards, right? And that's what I'm trying to get at. But when you get there, it's more about levels of awareness. You start off, you're like, I'm playing just with one scale, but you're like, if I start with one scale and end in another scale, I'm going to maximize my sort of scale knowledge, because then I can just move back and forth as necessary. You're like, you see this as one piece of information now, not 2 separate pieces of information. It's like how easy 2 + 2 = 4 is compared to, 3,647 times 19. And if you just did that in the comments, you're a mad lad. So, that's what I'm kind of getting at there, is just if you start lumping this information together, it becomes like the 2 times table rather than the 9 times table, because it becomes very familiar. And then, of course, the last level of Zen is just listening to the sequence of sounds and really starting to zone in on things like, what is the Mixolydian sound? And then you could either play it, or if you heard it, you could easily identify it. Right, but the first one is getting the systems down. The pentatonic system, the major modes. Be nice if you knew the harmonic minor modes attached to the major modes, right? Then you've got, the major triads with arpeggios, minor triad arpeggios, diminished. Augmented, you could skip, but you should be doing, especially for triads. Then you're into dominant 7 territory, major 7, minor 7, dominant 7. Minor 7 flat 5 or half diminished, right? So there's all that work there to sort of collate all the information to get it under your fingers, so you can now start to use it in improvisation. But you're not really improvising. That's improv number 6,475 for me, right? So I've been doing this a long time. That's why I make it look easy. But when I was just starting out and everything, it was just trying to play these scale systems in time with the music, and then the scale that I was using, I was trying to sync up with whatever I was hearing to be like, this is the best choice for this chord that I'm hearing. And then it was like, this is the best choice with respect to the pentatonic, and this is the best choice with respect to the scale. And then it was, this is the best pentatonic with, this is the best diatonic scale, but superimposed. So it's not the one in the key that I'm working in, it's one borrowed from another key. You see what I mean? I keep incrementing the difficulty so that I have all of these tools, and I'm like, oh, that's all based around this Phrygian position. So that all becomes a big piece of information. You're like, I have this major 7 arpeggio, I have this minor 7 arpeggio, I have this major 9 arpeggio, I have probably the diminished arpeggio. Then you've got scales, right? The pentatonic scale with respect to the Phrygian position. You have the Phrygian mode. You've got the harmonic minor mode associated with the Phrygian position. That's another great one, especially for the 3rd degree there. There's a great melodic minor one there too. So I think you're getting the point. At that one position, you're like, wow, there's all these choices. You're not even going to have half as many of those choices when you get to the 1st degree. It's going to be like the major scale. And that's almost it, right? So you see what I mean? The 3rd degree offers this huge plethora of choices. So when you're improvising, you can take advantage of that by syncing things up and playing the right ones. But of course, it starts with the trial and error of just playing the scale systems and then syncing them up to be like pentatonics with the modes. Then you're like, modes with these triad arpeggios. And then you're like, oh, the modes with the dominant 7 arpeggios. Then you're like, the modes with the dominant 7 arpeggios ending with a triad because it gives it a more solid sort of like musical ending. And now all of a sudden you've created and completed the grand loop, right? So I don't want to beat this thing to death. Think of it as levels of awareness. First, you're like, oh, I'm playing these scales. Maybe I should play them, together as a group. All of the ones I know, instead of just doing all the pentatonic ones and then moving to all 3 notes per string and then doing the major scale or whatever it is that you're doing. Actively find ways of combining them together. Don't look for somebody to tell you how to put them together. Be like, this is one scale, this is the other scale. Play one, play the other, then figure out how you would attach them together until they sound like, yeah, that goes together. Because if you're playing a major pentatonic and you're playing a major scale and those two things don't reconcile, you're doing something wrong. Right? And then after you're doing that, you're starting to then add in new levels of complexity, right? With sequences, your fingers out of order. Instead of going up and down, you're adding new levels of technique, right? Hammer-ons and pull-offs, sweeps, alternate picking, you know what I mean? Economy picking. So these are all sort of factors that you get into developing the fluidity, if you will. And again, sort of concentrate on things methodically. Don't just try to do like this big, huge spread. Start with something that you're good at. If you're like, I play a lot in the minor pentatonic, be like, I'm going to do the minor pentatonic here, the one shape before it, which is Mixolydian, and the one shape after it, which is going to be the Ionian position, and then cover that entire part of the fretboard. And now you have 3 separate positions where you can start doing 3 separate groups of things. And then just keep upping the ante from scales to arpeggios to dominant 7 arpeggios to the really advanced techniques like the Beatos and the Gambalis and the whole 9 yards, where you're just doing these absolutely psychotic compound arpeggios that are much, much, much more challenging, both from a technical perspective, but also from just envisioning them on the fretboard, because it's several small ones all collated together into one big monster one. And if you get lost, and that sucks, right? So this is all sort of things, but to get on the path, if you will, it's like get improvising, start playing these scale systems, but then have awareness, be looking for synergy, look for ways to combine these ideas, being like, when I hear this sound, I should be playing here in this position, I should be playing these things together. When I hear that next sound, oh, that's a minor chord, move here, should I go to 2 or should I go to 6? You go to 2, you're like, I'm in the Dorian position. I'm going to do these 2 things. Minor 7 flat 5 into the Dorian pentatonic. Then you're like, oh, the next one, that sounds like the natural minor. I'm jumping up to play the minor pentatonic in the root position. And then I'm going to be sneaky. I'm going to jump into, again, another minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio, but in the Aeolian position. Boom, you're off to the races, right? And you keep doing that over and over and over again. You're like, I'm going to do a whole sequence of scales now. So I'm going to go from 3 notes per string into the harmonic minor scale, and then 3 notes per string, and then harmonic minor, meaning the modes, right? The Ionian mode into the harmonic minor associated with the Ionian mode, or that complements it using synergy, right? That's one of the big ones, synergy. Those 2 things go together. There, I'm done my rant. It's 10 minutes. So get practicing. Watch the last two little exercises at the end to sort of get the free play idea under your fingers, and then just get working on those types of ideas for yourself. Develop melodies, use different techniques, think about the scales that you're practicing, mix and match. Don't be stagnant, be dynamic, but most importantly, have some sort of idea about what you want to do and then do it. So play the one thing, stop and be like, what am I doing next? Arpeggio, scale, pentatonic, what? Chord? And then do that. You're like, oh, I'm going to do a caged chord. All right, go. Which one? Second degree, third degree, first degree? Which one is that? Major, minor, diminished, augmented? You get the idea. The more you do that, the more you speed up the speed of mind, and that's what gives you fluidity on the fretboard. And then, of course, just having, lots of practice hours with the scales and whatnot. Do things just marry up on their own naturally, and you become the shred maestro. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate every single one of you. We'll see you in the next one.